We are very privileged today because we're going to enter into a temple at a crucial moment of history. The temple is the house of Professor Georges Abi-Saab in Montreux, overriding le Don du Midi. And the moment is the 75th anniversary of the UDHR. So we're so privileged because we'll have a private commemoration with one of the great minds of our times in terms of international law in general and human rights law in particular. So we're very excited about it. I'm with Michael and Britta, and we will meet him just in a minute.
So on religion, basically to a little bit from the same angle as Michael, if the secular, legally established human rights lawyers are still conceptually confused on fundamental issues like what's collective and what's not, who owes what to who, what's the relationship between economic rights and so on, what if we bring the dimension of religion into it, the freedom of religion, Article 18 of the Universal Declaration. So, and especially this circular argument of paragraph 5, I think, of the Wiener Declaration. What do you make out of religion in human rights law?
And what's the role of the religious leaders and faith actors in that context?
Well, if you consider human rights law and the right to development, all of them are what the French literature call un droit de finalité, which is the blooming almost of the human being by fulfilling all his potentials.
The flourishing.
Yeah, flourishing, yes. Then I think they have the same approach as religions, because religions are supposed to also permit the individual to live at a higher level of spirituality, of peace with himself and with the others, etc. Whatever religion. So it is not so much religion as such. It is when religion, but any ideology, becomes an exclusive dogma. And this is not necessarily the fault of religion, but the instrumentalization of religion by some groups. So, in principle, religions should facilitate the human rights, the respect of human rights. But if you interpret any religion, any ideology as exclusivist, that those who believe are superior to those who don't, that this permits one group to enslave others, or interpret religion also in the sense that you can use coercion in order to save the soul of the people. So So it's a question of interpretation to me. We cannot make a general rule. I mean, if you look at what is going on in India, India is also a good example, because Modi and his group consider that Hinduism first justifies the class system and so forth, and particularly in their relations with Muslims. But what I wanted to say is that the Chinese idea that giving freedom to the individual hinders the advance of the collectivity. And this is why.
This is where the dogma is instrumentalized. This is where the dogma is instrumentalized.
Yes.
Against individual rights.
Yeah.
And if it's boiling down to the question of how you interpret texts, be it religious texts or legal texts for that matter, because in that sense also human rights,
Yes.
There can be dogmatism on both sides.
Yes.
So how to reconcile religion and human rights in that context?
Yeah. Well, I remember something I read by Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India. He was a very cultured man. He went to Cambridge, etc. So someone asked him, I don't know whether it is in his autobiography, which is called The Discovery of India, or elsewhere. How come you, Mr. Nehru, who is so well educated, etc., do you believe in the fact that of pantheism and sacred cows and so forth? His answer was very good. He said, of course, everyone should have the freedom to think for himself. But who am I to discard or make fun or something like that? I don't remember the word, belittle, or the word. To belittle convictions of millions of people over hundreds of years. Meaning what? He didn't answer the question immediately what he thinks, but that such beliefs which are so deeply anchored should not be made fun of or something of that sort. That one has to, you can criticize them intellectually perhaps, but you should not simply
Dismiss.
treat them. And I think this gives us a cue that when people feel very strongly about certain ideas, that does not mean that you should not touch this idea. You can perhaps rationally explain your position, which is against, but don't do it in a way that considers it as something to laugh at, more or less. I mean, the idea of cow, sacred cow. I don't find the right words, but that's the limit I can see, that respect of beliefs of people does not mean that you cannot criticize them. And there is a famous Voltaire word, I may not agree with you, but I'm willing to fight to the death for your right to think as you do, like, or as you do. So I don't think religion themselves, but it is indeed a fact that it has been instrumentalized either to try to impose one's ideas on others. I mean, the wars of religion in Europe took 100 years, as you know, the 100 Years' War. And between Christians, it's simply Catholics and
But now human rights are being seen as the secular universal religion of the world.
Yes.
And it enters into a religious war against traditional religions. When you see what's happening in France and these constant crises on abaya, qamis, hijab, and the Human Rights Committee 4 or 5 years ago found France faulty for prohibiting even the niqab, the integral veil in the public sphere, and recently it comes again. So where is the instrumentalization here? Is it from the poor young teenager girls who are believing that this is a religious duty? Or is it from the state that interprets secularism to be giving them the right to impose? And that's only one example.
No, I think this is it's too rigid an interpretation of secularism. I mean, what the original idea of secularism, particularly in France, was that religion should not interfere with politics, basically. It was separation from religion and the state. Not to be against the religion, but that religion should remain a private affair. That they interpreted it exaggeratedly by saying you cannot do this, you cannot do that, you cannot vaunt religious symbols. But
who are we to tell others,
exactly,
don't show your religion? Exactly. To quote Nehru.
Yeah. No, what's happening in France is something which is, let's say, understandable in social psychology. They find that their way of life is being changed by that. And that is the result of having a growing numbers who
dress and act differently.
yes, they act in a way which can be understood psychologically, but logically it's a different question.
And what about religious actors, as Michael was asking?
You admit them, etc., but
you have to take them with their beliefs. They have the same rights.
Yes, and
this what you mentioned also earlier on in terms of non-coercion, non-discrimination, the 18 commitments on faith for rights, which were really developed jointly, and we have here the faith for rights toolkit also, which develops this further. And there, the commitment number 4 is specifically looking into non-discrimination, both in the context of state religions, which should not lead to discrimination, but similarly also doctrinal secularism should not lead to discrimination as well.
Yes.
So this is precisely what you just mentioned earlier on in that context.
Yeah, I'll read that with great. I have to say that I didn't follow this much as an economic thing.
Yes, it's an attempt to empower religious actors to defend human rights from their own.
Yes, by saying we defend the same thing, yes.
In different terms, in different narratives, maybe.
We arrive at the same. We have the same finality.
Exactly, as you said it at the beginning. Yes.
Yeah.
And Ibrahim and myself, we will be teaching at the Geneva Academy a course on religions, beliefs, and human rights. So we will try to unpack precisely these questions. And if you have one key message to our students, and also to us, because we are equally learning.
We are equally students.
Exactly. How to reconcile the religions, the beliefs, and the human rights.
To be tolerant. How to reconcile. To be tolerant. You don't have to accept the other view. You can criticize it even intellectually, but you have to understand that the others have the right to believe what they want. And that is a legitimate position to have such a conviction. They don't have to defend themselves to have a conviction. So it's tolerance. The only word I can think of.
And what are the limits to tolerance? So precisely if you have, for example, most religious leaders are men and old. So the role of women, of youth is obviously skewed. So there we also have a shorter leg of the chair. How to empower women and youth, for example, in that context, and also to prevent discrimination against them through religious dogma, for example.
Yeah. Well, these are things I haven't really contemplated, but I think, anyway, as far as women, the only way is for the women to affirm themselves. And they are doing that. Even among the church, women are playing a greater role now, etc. But because you see here, we come again to how do you change the perception of religion in the minds of the religious. That's the problem. It's a question of interpretation again, but interpretation, reinterpretation of things which have been sunk deeply for generations.
And these depths created recently a very flagrant example of tension here. When you said that, of course, those who do not believe have the right to criticize the religious thinking as much as you want. What are the limits of this criticism? Recently, for example,
rational criticism.
What about the burning of Quran?
No. But that is a flagrant example of dismissing, of belittling, etc. No.
But human rights law does not prohibit this. It's considered offensive, but still expression. As long as it did not reach the threshold of incitement to violence, Article 20 of the Covenant, Civil and Political Rights.
No, but it shows a disdain, an attitude of disdain.
Can it be prohibited by law or there are other means? What's the most efficient way of dealing with it?
No, I think it's basically through education, through understanding that because you can prohibit it by law.
It will still happen?
Yeah. When we come to deep convictions, you have to change the idea, and this is why tolerance is important. Part of tolerance is also the idea of coexisting with others who think radically different from you.
But as you said, at times people fear those who are radically different, especially within multicultural societies, and with the demographic factor.
But there it's a political, it's not a religious.
What about the position of human rights law and instruments? Is there something missing normatively, or it is, as you say, more on the level of education and tolerance and coexistence from a social perspective?
I mean, when you adopt laws, you should take into consideration also the possibility of their being followed.
Of course.
And you can adopt the law, I mean, but more important in my mind is to make it acceptable to the ones, or to see how you can convince them to act in the way the law wants them to act. Because on such issues, law is not enough. Let's put it this way. I'm not saying it can be used, but it's not enough. See, for example, about equality between men and women, there is this constitutional text in Switzerland, not any country, in country supposedly civilized to a high extent, which speaks of equality, particularly in remuneration and what. But up to now, they have not reached it. It's there since 20-some years.
A final theme is overarching of all of the topics that we discussed it with you. We promised to be the last question because we're almost 2 hours of your time.
No, it's all right. You are most welcome to stay for another 2 hours.
The institutions, the mechanisms of human rights. Now, if you compare it with 30 years ago when the Vienna Declaration Program of Action was adopted, it's a huge, Professor Philip Alston has an article called Ships Passing in the Night.
Yes.
He was describing the treaty bodies, and at that time there were only 6 of them. Now there are 10 and 7 or 8 additional protocols, and there is in the pipeline another convention that might overlap with the Covenant on Civil, Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. There are 3 others also in the pipeline. Is this the way forward? Luis Arbour had a radical idea, you remember probably, the idea of merging all existing treaty monitoring bodies into one unified standing treaty body. Manfred Novak has the idea of putting all these quasi things, quasi-judicial, quasi-legislative away, establish a world human rights court. Are we on the right direction institutionally with all this proliferation? We have over 50, 60 special rapporteurs. We have 174 treaty body experts. They start to compete with each other. They start to overlap. Coherence of jurisprudence is at stake. How do you see this institutionally from your own perspective?
It's typical UN proliferation, yes. And from the beginning, this idea of coordination, etc., well, I think one should not go from one extreme to the other, because, of course, the proliferation and has its very, very bad effects, particularly when you deal with the same problem in two different organs.
And without an appellate body.
Yeah, yes. So that's very bad. But also, you know, the French philosopher who was a priest at the same time, what's his name? De Chardin. Yes. He defined evolution. He was also a scientific. He wrote Le Phénomène Humain. De Chardin, yes. He defined evolution as specialization consciousness. Specialization, and you feel that you need greater specialization, but you have to be conscious of the need and why do you specialize. So you may need certain organs, different organs dealing with different problems, but not so much that they all do a little bit the same thing.
You feel this is the case already?
Yeah, yes, in the UN, unfortunately, yes.
And more to come, more of the same.
Yes. So this is why, as I said about the convention, what counts is to take a hard look to what it
Adds.
Yes. And as I did with the declaration, at the beginning I was very critical, but then said, yes, but it brought a few things. But then it would be good if someone can simply make or put together the additions. For example, now, you know, there is this cancel culture among the young students. You know, would say everything that was done before was bad, etc. And we should simply destroy everything and start anew with a clean slate. But that's really completely wrong, because everybody can make mistakes. And some of what has been said, before we thought the earth was flat, etc. But okay. But that does not mean that everything that was said was wrong. I mean, one of the greatest minds of the world is Aristotle. I think everybody, okay. Aristotle thought that rivers run to their sources. And even worse, in terms of human rights, he thought that slavery was a natural institution. Does this mean that he was a racist and esclavagist, and we should forget everything Aristotle said?
So we should be tolerant with all the failures, because at least
and see what is, And I give the example. I mean, is it the Quran or what? ما ينفع الناس يمكث في الأرض.
القرآن. فأما الزبد فيذهب جفاء وأما ما ينفع الناس فيمكث في الأرض.
So I use this part.
Just to translate it, it says that how do you say
the froth.
The froth goes away, but what is beneficial remains.
Yes, and I use that technically in explaining the growth of international law. I say by sedimentation. So you have one layer atop the other, because there is no legislator which imposes it. So it's basically
Political
informal, yes. So I say everybody brings something, and a few grains of sand stick, and the rest.
This is the beautiful, not metaphor, but explanation
goes away
in a metaphor.
Yeah.